It looks different from the top and the bottom. We are talking about big companies. From the top, the bosses see symmetry and order. From the bottom, frontline employees see a cloud of controllers. Perhaps you have heard this many times before. Rule number 1, the boss is always right. Rule number 2, if the boss is wrong, refer to rule number 1. And companies for long have been accused of being hierarchical. But times are changing.
It's often regarded as the comeback of the century. In the early 90s, a highly bureaucratic Lufthansa faced its worst ever financial crisis, close to bankruptcy with losses of $1 million a day. It went from bank to bank, including Deutsche and Gressler, the CEOs of which were part of the Lufthansa board. But it was refused a loan. No one believed Lufthansa would recover. Then came another blow, the Gulf War, crash landing the entire airline industry. But things changed within a year, and the crane found its wings again. With 17 billion euros in revenues in 2002, Lufthansa is part of the Star Alliance. But this was brought about by changing a monolithic organization into an entrepreneurial one, where every manager had the ownership of creating value for the company, and every employee believed that things could be changed.
Shumantra, Jack Welch, in his usual colorful language, really described a traditional organization structure very well. You want to tell us that?
I mean, his statement was, most companies are built so that everybody has their face towards the CEO and their assets towards the customer. Everybody looking up. And I think it's... But it's actually true, If you look at many companies, as just the inside of it, you have a meeting with a customer, your boss calls. Which meeting do you think you cancel? You go to the boss. Now, this is exactly what happens in top-down companies, that is coming down from the center, and I think that is, and the rate of change in the environment, all these notions becoming customer-oriented, they are very nice words, till such time you confront that the only way to become more customer-oriented is to become less boss-oriented.
The other phrase that has been bandied about here is inverting the pyramid. Is that the exact opposite of the Jack Welch definition?
Yeah. The real question becomes, where is the source of what kind of entrepreneurship? In a traditional top-down company, the only form of entrepreneurship that you're left with is the top management. The top management is the grand strategist. The top manager, the CEO, has this wisdom through his or her control over the resource allocation process. Everybody else is efficient implementer. Their job is to implement. Great. But you have one entrepreneur. Imagine what you have done when you have inverted the pyramid. Now all the frontline people, which is where the value of the company is actually being produced, where you're actually making a product or selling a product or developing a product, if you can create the entrepreneurial spark plugs there, that doesn't mean the CEO is not an entrepreneur. The CEO is one kind of entrepreneur, big acquisitions, major new businesses, internationalization. But there is the other kind of entrepreneur in my market, to look out for opportunities, to create new opportunities, to exploit them. You have expanded the entrepreneurial capacity of the company.
Now, when traditional organization structures, companies which are trapped in it, two questions here. Perhaps one, Geeta, the first one to you here. Indian companies are very much traditional organization structures. Anything in our culture, anything in our legacy that makes us so boss-oriented? I mean, to pick up what Sumantra said, the fact that entrepreneurship begins and ends at the top, isn't that largely applicable to Indian companies?
Yes, but equally, you asked a question that is there anything in our Indian tradition, and I'd say there is a lot. Maybe that's not coming into companies because as of now, all our companies are, the structure follows Western patterns. But if you see in the traditional Indian culture, you have the society as the most important part.
Two comments on that. I firmly believe there is nothing in our history, our culture, our religions, nor anything in our psychology or character that is contradictory to entrepreneurship. If you take the latter one, Indians going outside of India have developed a wonderful record of entrepreneurship. They're respected.
Yep.
I think and it is neither our history nor us, it is a system that we created in 50 years that killed entrepreneurship. Not because there was no other way. The only opportunity for entrepreneurship was to get a license.
No,
that naturally the top will do.
No, but why is it that even multinational companies in India have had more of a traditional organization structure in India than they would have for the units overseas?
I will say, look, for 50 years, if opportunity creation, opportunity pursuit is the core of entrepreneurship, the financial system is controlled by the government. The actual product market system is controlled by the government through licensing. The only way you create an opportunity is by interacting with those people to get a license, to get the loan. If that be the way, the only person who could be the entrepreneur is the CEO.
Infosys, a company that believed in entrepreneurship. Its success driven by a management process that promoted entrepreneurship down to the lowest rung. With revenues of $545 million in the US and a net profit of over 800 crore rupees in India, its 10,000 employees across the globe are instilled with a sense of ownership that emanates from the values practiced and preached by its chief mentor, N.R. Narayanamurthy. Today, with over 2,000 crore rupees in assets, it's the quintessential entrepreneurial organization.
Just look what you're saying. Kodak is a good example. Let me not take an Indian company. Let's take Kodak. Kodak finds its entire huge organization in Rochester frozen solid, top down, bureaucratic, nothing really happens. What does top management of Kodak do? They said, okay, let's create some venture teams outside. Imagine what the top management is saying when they do that. They say, this is my main company. I can't do anything here. Let me throw some resources at mavericks at the periphery of the organization, close my eyes and hope for magic. Even if they succeed, that doesn't solve your problem because your main organization is very dissolving.
But couldn't it be a suffusing back of the outpost into the...
it almost never happens because the center will always kill that when it becomes a threat. The bureaucracy in the middle. This one, there is only one way to deal with this one, which is to catch the bull by the horn. You have to, at some point, recognize the need. Now, that doesn't mean you do it overnight. You do it without preparation. I think, there's an analogy I use. Companies like human beings, you and I, human beings, we have an anatomy, a structure. Companies have a structure. We have a physiology on top of the anatomy, blood circulation system and so on. Companies have management processes. And then beyond anatomy and physiology, we have a psychology. For companies, it's culture, management, mindset, whatever. So when I say you have to catch the bull by the horn, I don't mean tomorrow overnight you have to change the structure. What you have to start off is change the culture, change the psychology, help people understand that the need for this entrepreneurship. You have to prepare the entrepreneurs. They have been implemented for 20 years. You have to give them the skills. You have to prepare the senior managers to learn to be coaches, to learn to step back. So there's some preparation, but you have to take this one in the mainstream, not at the periphery.
All right, I think, yes,
sorry, there's just one point I want to make here. We came across this one company. The CEO is saying, oh, we must empower people. We must empower the front line. The company is going nowhere. We need entrepreneurship. So he went around all the branches talking to everyone. And he said that, look, I'm going to give you all this freedom and power. And they just looked at him aghast. There's been no training, no preparation.
So what you're saying, Geeta, essentially is that there needs to be a series of transformations that top management has to put through the organization before you can just move from a traditional structure to an entrepreneurial structure. Sumantra, why don't we just go straight into those 3 steps that are needed to make a traditional organization structure into an entrepreneurial one?
I think the first one is to create small units. What do we mean by small? It's all relative. In British Petroleum, $150 billion company, a small unit is $1 billion unit. On the other hand, in Euro Disney, it's typical Euro Disney language, which they call it small world. But every ride in Euro Disney is a small world. That gang runs it as a business. So what is small depends on your size.
So break up your company
into these small units. Now, it's not just break up, because all big companies have small units. Is the way you think about the units. Typically, most managers think top down. They think here is total, Hindustan Lever, then you break it up into divisions, then into SBUs, then into product lines, you break it up step by step. So ultimately you come to small units. Ice cream business is a unit.
Right.
Here the change that takes place is in the mind. That's bottom up. That says, this is where I create value. These small units are the units of ownership. They are central. Everything else is built around them. But first is define these units. Why small units? It is very hard to create that entrepreneurial spirit, that sense of ownership, which is essential in a 2,000 person unit. It's much easier to do so in a 200 person unit. If you're a part of a 200 person unit, you can feel it's my unit, I own it.
Would it, this small unit you're talking about, and the profit center concept that that a lot of us have dealt with, are they the same?
You know, historically we used to differentiate between cost center, profit center, investment center. I think this language confused, because then it becomes you are a profit center because you're a customer. I'm a cost center. I'm second class citizen. You are first class citizen. I say performance center. The units have to have performance goals. They may be internal units producing goods or services for other units. They can be externally facing units. But they are small, and the local management feels the sense of ownership and is allowed the sense of ownership. That I will say is step one.
Okay, you've done your step one. You've broken up your company's operations, businesses into these small units.
Second step is create clear, simple, rigorous performance management processes, completely transparent, so that most companies...
Give us an example.
ISS, okay? Many people haven't heard about ISS. Let me tell you the business of ISS. ISS is in one business. It cleans floors.
Cleans floors.
Floors in hospitals, airports, factories, homes. Think about the business. It's the world's most fragmented mom and pop business, right? ISS employs 130,000 people. Is the world's #1 floor cleaning company. It is #1 in every country in Western Europe. It is within the top 2 in every country in Eastern Europe. It is #1 in Brazil. It was #2 in the US. It's completely global.
It cleans floors.
Cleans floors. ISS has 7 different companies. It's not one UK subsidiary. One company totally focused on cleaning trains.
Okay.
One company totally focused on cleaning airports. Focused. But it's not even this. When I say performance management, let me tell you what they do. Every contract, imagine how many thousands of contracts ISS has over the world. Every contract has performance management. A contract is a gang boss and a group of people who cleans this studio of yours. Each week, this group will receive a statement, completely simple, that says from your client, revenue is so much. Direct cost, labor, material, so much. This is your contribution margin. No overhead allocation, no confusion, no requirement of MBAs or PhDs. The simple cleaner can understand. He or she can go back home and tell his or her spouse, last month we made 200 rupees, this month we made 300 rupees.
Its products flood the market and its frontline entrepreneurs make its fortune. Since 1953, HLL has maintained its position as the #1 packaged mass consumption goods maker in India, and its success is driven by its vision to address the daily needs of its consumers, a vision that inspires its 41,000 employees to excel. HLL believes in attracting and molding the best talent in India, and its local training centers have been guiding a new breed of entrepreneurs every year through its management development programs, which started in 1953. Its new entrepreneurial thrust earning it operating profits of over 1,900 crores in 2002.
Very few people at senior levels have any performance management variable that you cannot go home and tell your wife about is not useful. It's too abstract.
What about larger corporate functions like budgeting, resource allocation?
Figure out a way what are the key performance measures in ISS for that gang? It is revenue, profit, contribution.
And how much
for
of
R&D unit will be different, for manufacturing will be different. And second, the performance management process must be completely transparent.
So step 2 you're saying is that these small units, they are the ones who get the information, they generate the information, they control the information, they use the information.
And it creates discipline in the organization. Okay. That creates discipline.
Now what does top management do here?
Now then that's the third part, which is you need absolute clarity of mission, purpose and standards. In the problem of decentralization, of entrepreneurship is the following. To most managers, the business they are doing always appears to be the world's most difficult, most horrible business. Everybody else's business is easy. So give them freedom, as opposed to trying to increase their revenues by 1% or reduce their cost by 1%, they will immediately try and do something completely different. This is what creates this complete lack of discipline in entrepreneurial companies. The protection against that is absolutely defined at 2 levels. One, for the total company, clear statement of mission. In BP, you'll be told, we are in the business of exploration of, refining, production and marketing of oil and gases and some closely related petrochemicals. That's it.
So they communicate the business
very clearly.
Logic.
So don't come to me trying to sell real estate or dirty photographs or music. That's not the business we are in at the corporate level.
So they set that.
And second, for each unit, similarly, its mission, its scope should be absolutely defined. So you as the unit manager have complete freedom to run your business the way you want. However, you don't have a freedom to expand the scope of your business to prevent this.
Are we then to understand that that operating unit or that disaggregated business is not going to be setting overall strategy? That is being set by top management, but the strategy of delivering its numbers, of its targets, is left to that. Is that
you know, I increasingly have become very skeptical about this word strategy itself, because so many sins are put into that word. Top management creates the overall vision of the company. Top management shapes the scope, the boundaries. Top management builds the framework. If that's what we mean by strategy, top management sets strategy.
So framework being, as you said, we are in this business, but we are not in that business. We're not going to get into
the corporate strategy is set by the top, but the unit sets a unit strategy, and it is not maybe strategy with a small s, but it's not that the unit is just the operational implementer. The unit is responsible for today's performance and tomorrow's goals.
Give us in BP, for instance. Well, BP is a large one. Let's get back to ISS. What does the top management define, and what does strategy? I'm talking about the much confused word. In terms of strategy, what does the top management define, and what does that unit which is responsible for cleaning airports in the city of London? What strategy does it decide?
ISS is a funny case, but nevertheless, I'll tell you the story of ISS. What top management defined, was very simple. Paul Andreessen, the CEO, not once did he ever say, I want to be a global company. Not once did he ever say, I want to be the largest in my business. He said none of these. He said the following. That's all he said. He said, he used to work for Exxon, big company, hated it, bureaucracy, joined this. His mother was a factory employee. He says, when I joined this company, at the time it was a small cleaning company in Copenhagen, in Denmark. He says, I found my employees, when they go out to work in the morning, they wear tennis clothes so that their neighbors can't find out what job they do. They're cleaners, right? Mm-hmm. He says, that I want to change. Cleaning is a professional service. I want these people to have the pride that they are professionals in the service they provide. He spends more on the uniform of his cleaners than most airlines spend on the clothes of their stewards and stewardesses. Everything was, he invested in R&D. He created specialized equipment in that industry, and so on. So he set the values that people must take pride. This is a work to be proud of. Yeah, you say in India, Charudar. It's to be proud of.
So he's done that. Now that unit which is cleaning in Copenhagen, which at one stage was not proud of its work, or at least proud of showing off its work. What strategy? Strategy. I can understand it's setting the operating goals.
So what the center has done, it basically the center says, look, we are a club. The rule of the club is, you come in, you run that business, you have the freedom to run the business. But to be member of this club, here are a set of club rules that are not negotiable, that you have to agree to. In ISS, it is the dignity of the individual employee. There are issues about safety, there are issues about environment, values basically, top set.
Correct.
But then the unit has real freedom in terms of its strategy. Those
Like
values it can't. If you take the French unit, the French unit is in cleaning services. It says, look, in France, particularly in Paris, cleaning and security cannot be separated. The way that his businesses have historically outsourced the service, he gets into security business.
We have to bring out the best in everybody. From time to time, all of us will fail. There is no doubt at all. That's not to mean that we are useless. We have several areas of strength and a few areas of weaknesses.
We are really telling everybody that the bar has to be raised, that everybody has to be more knowledgeable on business, everybody has to be more knowledgeable on technology, everybody has to be more productive, and we're saying that this is not negotiable. This is the way life is, because all over the world, that's the expectation of our customers.